Hi folks, I'm Mike, and I hope you're well. Micah's Choir is an amazing new vocal library which I looked at on the channel recently, and I know that since then many of you have had fun incorporating it into your music. But what goes into making a library like this, and who is behind it? Well, I'm pleased to say I've recently been chatting with two members of the group Sons of Serendip who were behind this wonderful library, and this is what they had to say. So Micah and Cordero, thank you so much for being with us today. There's so much to go through as well because you guys are very, very busy. I'm going to start off with the namesake for the library, Micah himself. Micah, can you give us a little bit of an idea about how this library came about, where the idea came from, just why did you do it? Why did you suddenly decide to create a vocal library?
Yeah, Mike, well, first, thank you for having us. We're just really grateful to have this opportunity to talk with you. So this came about because it was actually Cordero's idea. He thought, so we had been following Christian Henson from Spitfire Audio, and we had downloaded a number of libraries from Piano Book, and Cordero was like, hey, we can create something as well. And so he reached out to me, as well as, like the Kendall and Mason, the other members of the group, just to see if anybody would be interested in putting together a library for Piano Book. And so, so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And so he gave me a breakdown of what he was looking for and the idea that he had. And so I went into the closet, right around the corner, and where I was recording at the time, because it was during the 2020 pandemic. And I went through each part and recorded, everything that he said. And then I sent all the files over, and he did all the programming and put it all together and made what I think is a beautiful instrument.
I think so as well, and and I mentioned during the intro that there's a number of members of my community that I know of who have actually been creating some music using the library. So is that a bit of an odd situation to find yourself in, where your voice is now on, well, possibly pieces of music that you're never going to hear? I mean, have you listened to any music which has been created with it yet?
I have listened to it, and I've just been blown away by the creativity and the ways that it's been used, and I've used it myself in some of our tracks that we've developed, and so I've been blown away by the creativity and the ways that people are using it. So yeah.
And so Cordero, I know that I've had, hello by the way, I know that I've had people ask me before about, how would I go about, sampling instruments and what have you. And I'm really the wrong person to ask, because I did it once with my cajon, just that I didn't, and I did it out of laziness, just so I didn't have to set up my cajon every time I wanted to use it. It seemed like a simple thing to do at the time, but it wasn't quite as simple as perhaps I thought it was. Can you give us just a little breakdown of, first of all, where would people start? What's the actual process of recording an instrument? Well, in this case, Micah's voice. What are the considerations you're making?
Yeah, so generally, I would like to take a performance approach to sampling. So I examine what the instrument is and what kinds of lines it normally does, what kinds of sounds it normally makes, and generally I like to capture those. So I guess in the case of Micah's Choir, like for example, we tour together. I know what his voice sounds like, and I know like some of the little embellishments that he does when he's singing certain notes, and so I had him record those kind of embellishments, and then what the things that make an instrument sound like what it is. For the human voice, it's going to be like the little bit of the fragile sounds in the like when you kind of attack a note very softly, or even like the breaths. When you listen to a recording of a real performance, you hear the breathing. And so unless it's like a pop track or they cut it out, but for the approach that we take with music, we like this more natural approach. And so I told him to keep everything in there that was Well, to be honest, the breathing was actually a sort of an afterthought. I was like, you know what, this should stay in here, because after he would sing a note, then he would like kind of let out a little bit of air before he would take it. I was like, that's what makes it sound like it's intimate.
Right.
So yeah, so there's like I think I don't know that. Hopefully that answers the question, at least for Micah
Well, look,
Squire.
but let's dig into the more geeky side of it for a moment. So, for example, I mean, what software are you using to put together the library? Do you work it directly in, say, Contact, or how do you put it together in your case?
And so, Micah, after you recorded in Logic, you sent me the vocals, and I chopped them up in FL Studio and tuned them. And then after naming each sample, I then imported them into Contact, and then just went through the process of each sample, making sure that the volumes were fine, that the crossfades worked properly. And then there was a point where I kind of was on the fence about the breaths, because sometimes it seemed like there's a little bit too much when you would let go and everybody just takes a breath every vocal sample. But I found a way to tame it, and so that was.
So you, just for those people who've never done it before, are you recording each? Say you do a 2-octave range. Are you recording every single note in those 2 octaves, or are you taking some and then pitching them up and down, for example?
Right. So for vocal libraries, I guess it's my opinion, but I think it's really important to sample every single note chromatically, because the human voice, we've evolved to be super in tune to the human voice, and any kind of thing that sounds like it's not format correct is going to be a little irksome to listen to. So I think I sent you like Mike, I sent you a file that has no, did I send you the file, or did I tell you to? How did I tell you? I guess what it was. I told you to sing for like 8 beats and then take a breath.
Yes.
That's right. All right. And I remember because
how did that feel, Mike? I was standing in your cupboard doing these odd bits of isolated vocal, which are not related to a piece of music as such.
Yeah, I was more excited because I was thinking, I was like, oh, I wonder what Cordero is going to do with this. And so and so I was really trying to make sure that I hit every note in a way that I would, like, that I think would sound good. And
I thought you were going to say, like, oh, I was so excited because I knew that this would have my name on the library.
Oh no, I didn't even know he was going to name it that.
That was just kind of like quick. Like, I think we were just trying to get it out there quickly. It's like, Micah Squire. Sure,
right.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So, but just touching back again, I just want to. This is just for me to satisfy my geeky needs, Cordero. So I got that the process was that you're recording every single note chromatically, as you say. Now, were you also recording for different velocities within that per note?
So I guess less of velocity, more of dynamic layers. I guess because it's the instrument itself is not necessarily velocity sensitive, but
okay.
But like so there's 4 articulations, like a ooh and and ooh oh and ah, and I kind of knew that there was no way to make them, like, when you take 2 different samples, especially like some 2 samples that sound so different, like a ooh and a or an ah, to try to crossfade them, you're going to hear them when both are layered together. So I just kind of let that go. It's like, you know what, this is going to make it a choir library instead of like some kind of legato or single person library.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And it worked, because it just made the choir sound bigger. And what I would do is like some of the lower dynamics, I would just allow them to increase to a certain level, then I would bring them back down as another one comes in. So that way the volume doesn't just become so overwhelming by having 4 different dynamic layers stacked together. And then you put a little bit of there's like a feature inside of Contact where it's like a delay. that allows you to be able to control the mod wheel in a way such that it's not so immediate. Like sometimes it feels it's better to allow. Actually, I don't think I put it on the piano book version. I think I updated it later on to allow the crossfade to be less. It sounds weird to say less sensitive because you would think that you would want more sensitivity, but you want it to be less sensitive so that the crossfading feels smooth and not so wow, 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 just by wiggling the.
Yep, got you.
Yeah, so
Cool. So Micah's choir is, I know that you've done this on obviously the Spitfire Labs version. Then I noticed on Piano Book there's a contact version. I think there was something, is it called the discrete sampler or something like that? I can't remember what the other name of the sampler is. I could be mistaken. But
the decent sampler, yeah.
The decent, yeah, that's the one. Thank you. I was just kind of thinking when I tried the contact version, it was a little different perhaps to the Labs version. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's some differences. One of them is that in the Labs version they took away the breath sounds, and also they they created like several other patches, including an infinitely sustaining one. The one on Piano Book, it like he runs out of breath and then he takes a breath and then repeats. Whereas there on the Labs version, it's just continuous. Well, they have one where it's not as continuous, but they don't have the breaths in there.
Cool. Well, I'm just going to recommend to people, I'm going to put some links in the description down below, but I'm going to say go for the Labs version and also sign up for Piano Book as well. And I've got to thank you guys for that because I hadn't joined up to Piano Book before this, and I was intrigued to see what was going on over there, especially because I'd seen a video about imperfect viola, as it's called. I've been messing around with that today. I mean, that stands up to its name, doesn't it? This is something that's obviously important to you, Cordero, like the imperfections in sounds, humanizing things by having imperfections in there.
Yeah, so this is still an ongoing project because I'm trying to figure out the best ways to, I guess, capture those imperfections. The one that's on Piano Book, I have sometimes when you're playing the string instrument, when you take your finger off of a string, you know, the oil or whatever is kind of sticky, and so it'll create a little pluck sound that you really only hear, I guess, if you have the instrument up against your ear. And so I was wanting to create sort of that kind of vibe, that sort of intimate feeling. I also recorded some breaths, like for example, when a person's about to take a bow, you often hear, and then they take the bow. And then there's also like other small textures that you hear when like when you're doing vibrato, you hear, I don't know if you can hear this. Like you hear a little bit of sliding.
Yep.
So all these little aspects that make an instrument, that make it sound, you know, real, oftentimes those are lost in like traditional sampling. So I'm trying to find ways to include those and not make them, you know, and I guess what I'm working on now is trying to find a way to make it more customizable so you can determine how much of those imperfections you want. But
I really love that. It reminds me a little bit, and I don't know, we'll just go off of the library thing a little bit, but Micah, I was speaking with someone today with recording about comping, you know, the process of, you know, having several takes and then picking. I mean, when I do it, I'll go phrase by phrase and have, you know, audition parts. And I don't know if you go through that process. You're an amazing singer, and it's hard for me to imagine it takes more than one take to do it. But I don't know about you, but when you're listening to takes, do you find the same thing? Like you're listening for the not so perfect things? Do you find that's attractive in a voice, or you like the perfection?
So I think it depends on the song and the moment.
Right.
Oftentimes, I am trying to sing, you know, right in tune, and if I'm not able to hit, you know, or if I miss something or whatever, I can, you know, edit it as well. But I'm looking for like just moments, like what is appropriate for the moment. Oftentimes, I do think that having a little bit of I guess, let me see. So like there are certain songs where having a little bit of an ache in there is nice, especially, and you can do that through vocal cracks or vocal fries. I mean, and as well as like, not every note is perfectly in tune, but allowing a little bit of space in there for
Yep.
Notes to bend, and I think and that helps to just create uh, I guess a song or an arrangement or whatever that it can connect. Let me see, or a vocal performance. There we go. A vocal performance that that is a little bit more emotional, because oftentimes, like some of my favorite vocal performances actually are not perfectly in tune, but they have a little bit of they're a little bit out of tune every now and then, and there's a little bit of vocal fries, or they don't hit every note perfectly, but they bend a note every now and then, and so and so I just keep that in mind for the performance.
Well, with that in mind, I'm going to now move on to the Sons of Serendip aspect of you guys' sort of career, which of course is the group that you belong to. And I'm going to play one of your songs, which I discovered on your channel, which I've really enjoyed a lot. And I've also got to tell you about a really important person who's listened to that song, and what they've had in terms of feedback. I say a great music critic has heard that song and given some feedback, which you don't know about. So we'll listen to the song first, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss Sons of Serendip.
You saw too much. Is that what it was? Your ink on my skin, your fingerprints. I could cover it up, but I don't even want to. I'd do it again. What would you do? Whatever window you're looking through, I'll keep my door open for you. Whatever window you're looking through, I'll keep my door open for you.
So that was an amazing song from you guys called Window. And I mentioned beforehand that I'd passed that song to a really important sort of music critic in my life, always has been, and that's my mum. And as I guess you guys say mom in America, but my mum, funnily enough, and it's just a little bit of a background, she's 80 years old. We unfortunately lost my father last year, and she has now gone on a world tour, visiting family and friends, and she just arrived in the USA yesterday for the first time in her life ever, at 80.
Wow.
And she's going to visit my beautiful niece who lives in San Francisco. So she's arrived there. So I gave her some listening material, which included the song that we've all just listened to from you guys. I said, would you have any questions for members of the Sons of Serendip? And so this is what she wrote to me this morning. She said, Mike, truly wonderful, really, really unusual. Made me think of Dad very much, especially about keeping the window open for you, which I do with Dad all the time. And yet I don't think it was meant that way. I'm not sure about a question, only the impact it had on me. The harp was really, really beautiful. And that's what my mum had to say. Do you guys just get that reaction everywhere you go, Micah? I mean, it is beautiful, a lot of the music you produce. But have you just found for these last, I think, 8 years that you guys have been performing together, that it's universally resonating with people?
So I would say that um it's hard to explain, but I would say that a lot of people are um drawn into the music through the uniqueness of the instrumentation.
Uh-huh.
Because oftentimes it's like I haven't heard anything like that before, because even the so it's like, yeah, we have a harp, a cello, a piano, and a vocalist, and we do these creative arrangements of popular music, as well as we do our own, originals. And Window is an original as
Mm.
well. And what we try to do is capture, if it's a cover, we try to capture the essence of the song. We really pay attention to the lyrics, and we try to make it like something that is an emotional experience for
Mhm.
people, so that it's not just, yeah, it's oftentimes not just playing a song just for entertainment, but
Mm, mm, mm.
more for connection, for human connection. And then even during our concerts, we add in storytelling as well, to help to build a connection, and to connect on an emotional level
Yeah.
with our audiences. And so because I think what we try to do is to um, help people to feel something through the music, whether it's through the recordings or through the live performances. It's really just about feeling and emotion,
It's
and
really
yeah.
interesting that you say that, though, because is there any other option in music? Are we not
Right, yeah.
always wanting to make people? No, but it's interesting because I think there's maybe a sense. I'm going to sound like an old man now, but there's maybe a sense now that actually really impacting people emotionally is a slightly unusual thing sometimes. I mean, am I being an old man when I say that? Or?
Well, so
Go on, you want to say it, Micah? Go
no,
on.
no. Yeah, I think, Critter, I don't know if you want to speak to this as well, but a lot of our influences are folks who do that very well. Well, actually, a lot of our influences are film scorers, and
Right,
so through that, like, because with film scoring, what you're trying to do is draw out the emotion of a scene,
right.
and help people to connect even more deeply with whatever's happening on the screen. And so we don't have a video that we're, or I mean an image that we're, a picture that we're writing to. However, we do hope to paint pictures through the music, and
Mm.
to create the kind of sound that that we get excited about, and that we connect to emotionally, but then also that sounds different. I mean, it's naturally going to sound different because the instrumentation is different.
Yeah, I mean,
But
I was going to
yeah,
ask about
so
that because a part of me was thinking, wow, this must sometimes be a challenge, the arrangement, especially when you're doing like a really well-known song. And of course, you've got yourself on vocals, you've got Cordero on piano normally, you've got Kendall who's been playing on cello, and then you've got Mason on harp as well. I mean, harp, my goodness. And
yeah.
then as I thought about it, I felt less sympathy for you guys after a while because I thought, hang on, these arrangements make themselves. Hey, you could do Happy Birthday and it's going to sound so Sons of Serendip just by the instrumentation. So do they just happen? You go, hey, let's do a song by Nirvana today, and it's just going to sound so cool because of it.
Well,
Is
yeah,
that easy?
Cordero can speak on that.
Okay, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I think I would agree with that. When I reflect back to when we first came together, when we were first creating our first arrangement for the show, America's Got Talent, um, we came together. We didn't have any kind of intention about what kind of sound we were going for. I just wrote out some chords and for one of the songs, I think it was Somewhere Only We Know, and I just gave that to the guys, and we just improv'd on it, and it was. And, it was a harp, cello, piano, and vocals. The songs kind of wrote themselves in terms of like the vibe, and we would go back and forth whether we like something or not. And yeah, I think we have to try really hard to make a sound that doesn't sound like what we heard. We had a tour, a Stevie Wonder tour. So we covered a bunch of songs from Stevie Wonder, and we had to try really hard to get some of like the more upbeat kind of songs with a groove. But we pulled it off, and it still had a unique sound. But it was just something that you had to try harder, just given the instrumentation, and you had to get creative with it too. Like the harp has to kind of double as a guitar, as a rhythm guitar, or even the cello sometimes with this like the low engine of dum 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 dum. So it's tricky, but yeah, I think that going in for many songs, at least from my perspective, it's not so much that we're trying to unless it's a song that we've written ourselves where we have an intention behind it. A lot of covers, we just have to connect with the lyrics, and I think we just let the instrumentation and our own internal compass, I guess, kind of guide the process.
Yeah, there's so many things that you've touched upon there, and you did mention, and I've rudely not mentioned the fact that you guys were finalists in America's Got Talent, and that was around 8 years ago. Am I correct in saying that? Yeah, around about 8 years ago. I mean, what an amazing experience, first of all. So, Micah, had you guys been around for a few years before that, or how did that come about?
No, we were friends before that, and so Cordero, Kendall, and Mason all lived together in the same house in Cambridge, Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, and Cordero was the first member that I met, and Cordero and I connected on our musical interests and influences. And he was like, yeah, I have a roommate who's a cellist and another roommate who's a harpist. And I had an idea as to like, at least, I had an image, in my head of who his roommates probably, what they probably look like. And so when I showed up to their house and I met them, I was like, oh wait, you're a cellist and you're the harpist? And I was like, whoa. I was like, this is different, guys. This is very different. I was like, because I'm a vocalist, maybe we can collaborate at some point in the future. And that was probably about it was like 2010 when 2010 when we met. Then we graduated a couple of years later. We went our separate ways. We're doing different things. And then in 2014 is when I had heard about America's Got Talent auditions. And it was really just that. Like I called the guys and I said, do you want to audition? And everybody was like, yeah, sure. With no, real expectations. And then next thing you know, it's like we're swept up in this whirlwind. And
I feel like, you one of those groups that when I've watched you, there is that initial thing of, oh, wow, this is a different lineup, right? And then, the fact that you're kind of young guys, you're young compared to me at least. And it's, by the way, if you ever, if Mason ever tries to move on, I mean, where are you going to find another harp player to play contemporary music with you? I just want to put that out there in case Mason ever wants a raise, of course. So right. In a trading position there. But I think that, Micah, you describe yourself as a vocalist there. I think you're being a little modest, if I may say, because I have spied on your YouTube channel that you're really quite an accomplished pianist, for example, as well, and you were keeping up quite well in the clip with Cordero. So you're obviously multi-talented. But again, going back to Cordero, is there anything this man can't do apart from creating libraries and doing all the programming and things, and being a great pianist, but also having this viola library? So he obviously plays a little violin. And then, by the way, folks, it only took him 20 hours to learn to play the cello. So tell me, did you just do this? You set aside a day here and there, do you, Cordero? Is there any other instruments we should know about? You've got a guitar in the background, for example.
It might help to know that I can't sing and I can't dance. So,
you sing too. I have recordings of you singing. And it sounds great.
Sounds like Kermit the Frog. Sounds like Kermit the Frog. Kermit the Frog can hold a pitch, but he sounds like Kermit the Frog.
Not
Do
true.
are you a good cook, for example? Is there something you're bad at?
Yeah, I don't cook either that too well.
There you go. There you go. There's a human underneath there somewhere. But no, honestly. So apart from the piano, the viola, and the cello, and the guitar, hang on, that's 4, isn't it, Micah? I'm counting here. Is there anything else? I mean, flute, any
Yep,
woodwind
he plays the
instruments,
flute.
brass.
Play the sax.
Oh my!
I played the brass for a few months in high school. It was it's not the big tuba, but the little tuba. What's it called? I guess they call it baritone, but there's like another name for it.
But there's a seriousness to this because you are well placed. You are well placed to make music completely by yourself. Sit at home like people like me do. I do collaborate with others, but sit at home with all your instruments, your DAW, your audio interface, make music, sell it on Spotify. Why hang out with these guys and make music? What's the fun in that?
I can't sing, so I can't sing like Micah. I have the privilege of being able to work with my favorite male vocalist. So
I was going to say, this is the point in the interview where you say something inspirational and how great it is to collaborate with other people. But that's true, though, isn't it?
It is. It is. Music can be a lonely journey, just in front of your own computer and a DAW all the time. So there's something when you collaborate with somebody, when they introduce unexpected elements, it forces you to step outside of what you're normally comfortable with, and it's kind of fun. It's like a game. So you can't really surprise yourself a lot of times. You end up playing the same riffs, and so it's good to collaborate.
And it's amazing to me because you guys have produced some awesome quality music in terms of the production of it. And as we say, you did very well on America's Got Talent. I mean, went on Jay Leno, opened for John Legend. I mean, now finally you got to be on Creative Source, maybe the pinnacle, I dare say. But it's amazing that you do all this, and I'm sure that the viewers would be going, "Oh, these guys go into a recording studio and pay some big producer loads of money, then they hire someone to make their videos." But you're actually kind of very self-sufficient, aren't you? So let's hear just the nuts and bolts of this. Micah, you've got an audio interface. Any favorite audio interface that you use that you'd like to tell us about?
So I use the Apollo Twin.
Use the Apollo Twin, right?
Yeah, and I love it. My wife also does voice acting, and so it was a little bit easier to get her on board with getting it, and so.
So do you have a studio at
it.
home or just a corner of the house where you do recording, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I use the closet as my sound booth. So and it's like it's filled with clothes and things, and we just carved out a little space where I do the recording, and and so that's pretty much it. I use Logic as the DAW, and
cool. It's a classic vocal booth. The closet, there are naysayers. There are sound purists who say no, the reflections in the closet are no good. But in my experience, the closet with just a few clothes in there, it's a great place to go. So how about with the obviously technical person here, the more technical person here? I'm sorry, Micah.
No.
Cordero, so what's the kind of setup for you? Similar thing? Which audio interface? Which DAW do you use?
Yeah, so I go between a Focusrite and a Motu MK. What's this thing called? It's a Motu interface. And I use I'm kind of a DAW nomad right now. I go between FL Studio, Reaper, Logic now, and Ableton.
Yeah.
And for microphones, I just some kind of standard ones. We have like SM57, this little guy, a loop. What's it called? It's Lewitt LC. It's great for recording string.
Yeah, right.
Recording strings.
Small diaphragm condenser. Yep.
Yeah. And so just a variety of microphones. And then I have my instruments kind of hanging on the wall by the desk here, and I have a little basket of miniature. Let me pull it up here. I can't do it. It's a basket of instruments, a ukulele,
the ukulele, of
flute,
course. Yeah.
all kinds of flutes. So,
Yeah.
so I
Well,
just keep
the
those kinda
ukulele is
handy.
a great instrument. If it's just an instant be happy. Has
Yep.
anything sad ever been written on the ukulele? I doubt it.
I almost did.
Oh,
A while
don't,
back.
please. Let's not.
No,
Let's not.
let's not ruin the ukulele.
We'll go to the
Right.
cello for sadness. But
Right.
but I gather that you guys are in close physical proximity, but not all of the group. Are you all in the same city or close by? How does it work when you want to record things with each other?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all in the same. Yeah, Cordero, you can go. Oh, okay.
Oh,
So, we're all in this. So Cordero and I actually live right down the hall from each other, and
Cool.
yeah, we're in this artist community in Boston, and
Oh, wonderful.
and then Mason is in Providence, Rhode Island, and Kendall is in Cambridge. So we're all like within an hour of each
Okay.
other.
And just delving a little bit into how you go about this recording process. So, do you record live or do you multi-track when you're recording your stuff? How does that work?
we started out. Our first album was done more or less multi-track, and we got a studio and everything. It was expensive. So it was very, very expensive. And so over the years, we've kind of we would keep kind of visiting studios, and then eventually we just kept by our last album. We just did it completely in house. It was the most affordable album, but also the highest quality one that we
Yeah, right.
produced.
Yeah.
And so
And self-produced.
Yeah.
You did you bring in a mix engineer or?
well, we had somebody mix it, mix and master it. We did.
Cool. I mean, as if it wasn't enough, to be honest with you, that you do all of this, you self-produce this, and you're multi-instrumentalist. I mean, I don't know about Kendall and Mason whether they're also multi-instrumentalists. And then when we look at that wonderful song Window from just a moment ago, and when we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago, and I said, who produced the video? And what did you guys say to me?
Cordero.
So Cordero, you also produced the video. I mean, you're a man of many doors, a man of many instruments, and obviously you had to be the guy who produced the video as well. Do you sleep ever, or?
Sleep is the first thing to go.
Okay, so
I would say.
but
Yeah.
in all seriousness, that was really wonderful. Have you produced all of your videos, or was it just that one? Or
On our YouTube channel, I think I produced almost all of them. I think I produced
I
almost
think
all
all
of
of
them.
them.
yeah. I mean, I just think that, to be honest with you, the reason I'm bringing this up is just really to inspire people. I mean, as if they didn't already know. It's just incredible what people can do with the technology we've got now, and what you can. It's really a matter of how much time are you going to invest in learning the skills to do all of these things. And of course, even for people, I occasionally have people that think I've got people that help me out here that do things for me, like edit videos or set up lights or empty the garbage. But the whole thing, the whole of Creative Source, is just me. The website, the everything, and I just think there's an element to it. Of course, it's wonderful to collaborate and bring expertise in for people who are specialists in a field, but I also feel like it's kind of just amazing what can be done by yourself. And for you guys, do you think that if suddenly the success level went mega, it blew up, are you going to then start going, we'll just pay people to do that now? Or do you just enjoy doing that? I'll go over to Micah.
I have a feeling that there will still be a lot of aspects that we do ourselves. I think, I just think I do think that there is an enjoyment to the actual process of learning something new as well. And I think that's especially over the last couple of years since the pandemic, it's been there have been a lot of learning opportunities for us. And so I could imagine that even if things were to take off in that way, that we would still find ways to do a lot of the work ourselves too. And there's a satisfaction to it too, because like even when we first started as a group, like when we were touring, oftentimes we weren't touring with our own instruments and our own equipment, and so like, you know, a lot of that was just being handled. We would go into the green room and then come back out when it was time to do a sound check, and the sound checks were lasting, you know, hours at that time, because each new venue we had to figure out the sound and work. You know, we worked with a number of different sound engineers and things, but it always took a moment just to get the sound right for our particular instrumentation. So over the last few years, it's been, all right, how do we become more self-sustaining? What do we need to learn in order to have a simpler setup process, make everything smoother, you know, more streamlined? And so like, so once we got all the equipment that we needed, and, you know, we would show up. Now we show up to venues, and our sound checks are like or like setup process through the sound check can be between 45 minutes to an hour. And it's just so simple. So I could imagine us still, and it's more satisfying too, because we're putting all the pieces together and doing it ourselves.
I really love what you guys do. I love, as I say, that lineup and the arrangements that you get out of it. We were talking about Micah's choir earlier, and as you guys know, I did throw out to my community. I sort of challenged them to come up with some pieces of music, you know, using Micah's choir, and a number of them did. Some people just did something in 5 minutes and said, "Hey, here it is," and that was pretty good. Other people spent more time. I'm going to put some links in the description down below to, you know, some SoundCloud links, etc., for some of the pieces of music that have been created. But I'm also going to throw out a challenge to the people who are watching now. This is a new challenge, and it goes like this. I want you to cover a piece of music of some kind, do a cover song, and I'm sure everyone will be using virtual instruments. So grab yourself a virtual cello, a virtual harp, and a virtual piano, and grab yourself Micah's choir, and I want you to do a Sons of Serendip type piece of music with your virtual instruments. So if anyone's up for that challenge, let me know in the comments down below that you're going to take part in that, and then definitely get back with some links over the next couple of weeks. I'll give you a couple of weeks on it, and we'll see how they go. I think that would be really interesting for people. I had a conversation recently with someone about the fact that when we're restricted in some way, we're actually more creative. We tend to think, oh, creativity is about complete freedom, but it's actually boundaries which force us to be more creative. And I'm sure you guys are up to. But one last question on the lineup, because I was just thinking about your sound checks there, and it struck me that there's no bass guitar in there. Now, first of all, that must mean, for example, from Cordero's point of view, as the pianist, you're really having to take care of the low end of the music, right? Because the harp and the cello don't quite go there. Certainly the harp doesn't. Yeah.
So I have a low sine wave bass layered in with the piano, so that I can cover the lows. And well, to be honest, I have like a whole maybe 8 or 9 instruments I have layered in there at any given time. But yeah, so I cover the bass that way, and then there are times where Kindle will cover at least the transient aspect of the bass with some low percussive sounds. But yeah,
very, very interesting. Do you guys ever get tempted to go, hey, let's have 5 members of the band, just grab a bass guitar player?
We almost had 5 members. We almost had a percussionist in the beginning.
Yeah, right.
But then,
I have spied Micah occasionally on the cajon here and there. So that's 3 instruments there, isn't it, Micah? I mean, does anyone ever really count the cajon as an actual instrument that they play?
It is an instrument, yeah.
It's a chair. It's a seat you sit on.
No, it's an instrument.
I've just offended a
Glorified
whole
bench.
bunch of guys there by saying that. But
Okay.
no, really, really, it's just wonderful. So I'm going to just encourage everyone to check out your music. I'll leave a link in the description. It's really wonderful. I wish I could speak with you guys for hours and hours about it, because there's so much difference in what you do, which makes it, super fascinating to listen to. And also, I think the fact that you're sort of using quite real instruments, and I realise that Cordera is using lots of virtual instruments, but means it's got such an organic sound. I think the fact that you've got that cello and the harp in there gives it such an organic sound. But before we go, I just want to touch upon the subject going to the cello that I know, regretfully for everyone involved, including Kendall, he's sort of moving on to spend his time with some other things in his life at the moment. So you're currently, I believe that you will temporarily be using a cellist who has stood in for Kendall at times in the past, in any case. I mean, how does that feel after 8 years to be seeking a different member of the band? And how do you predict that's going to go chemistry wise for you? Because you would have got quite a chemistry between the four of you over this time.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy.
All right.
It's not easy. Yeah, when he first broke the news, we kind of saw that it was a possibility, and because he just has a number of different. A lot of it is he's growing his family as well as going into full-time ministry and working at a church as well, and so so we kind of saw that it was going to be moving in this direction, and but the reality of it is definitely difficult emotionally, for sure.
Right.
But Nathaniel Taylor, the cellist that we've been working with since the beginning of this year, he's been wonderful. Like he's been subbing for Kendall when Kendall isn't able to make it, and he's just a fantastic cellist, a fantastic human being. He's collaborated 3 times with Yo-Yo Ma, and so just the level of his playing is top quality, and so we have enjoyed working with him, and we're going to work with him through the rest of this year, and as we figure out what to do next, we're going to continue as a group no matter what. And so
and do you feel like at the moment, just to get into the sort of politics of it a little bit, but do you feel like you've got so used to Kendall's parts and the way he's been doing that you kind of almost want to say to Nathaniel, could you just do that like Kendall used to? Or is that thing about, oh, we've got to let him have his own thing going on as well? How do you feel about that?
We've been letting him, Kurt, you can say.
Well, I was going to say, I think it's a couple of things. Yes, we've been letting him kind of create parts or change the parts in a ways that, and sometimes it's actually even elevated, like or gave it a different aspect to, like for example, rhythmic things. We're like, oh, that's a different rhythm. I'm not used to it, but actually, I think I really like it. But I think also time will tell, because we haven't really got to an arrange like a full song with him. And so we'll soon see what that process is like. But from the little, like some of the small improvs that we've done, like we've seen, like we realize it's a different type of salt now. We had, I don't know, we had regular table salt. Now we're going to have just another flavor of salt, and it's going to still taste good. And
I think it's good for Kendall to know at this point that he was table salt. I'm just.
Oh no.
Hey Kendall, if you're watching, table salt. I mean, who doesn't need some table salt in their life?
That's what we do. We're just a little salt on people's lives to add flavor.
You were going to go sea salt or something, weren't you? Something a bit more exotic.
I was going to say monosodium glutamate, but then I thought
No, I mean, I really wish you luck, and I feel that with everything that I see from you guys, you seem just beautiful guys to work with, and I'm sure that the new guys are going to feel very, very welcome, and you guys understand enough about music to know that the performer needs to put a little bit of themselves in there, or else why bother? So I'm sure it's going to go well for you, and I've even noticed looking at your fans' reaction, and some of them have seen him fill in once in a while, that they've had a really positive sort of reaction to that happening as well. So if the fans are halfway there with you, then you're a long way along. So it's great to see that. Talking about your fans, I did notice that you've got a fan page, a Sons of Serendip Facebook fan page, and I did promise a lady there, Donna Bacon, that I would ask, or I would pass on her question, which was, who are your influences? I'll go with Micah first, and then we'll go over to Cordero.
So my biggest influences are Bobby McFerrin, India Ari, and Karen Carpenter. And I actually went to a workshop with, I went to a few workshops with Bobby McFerrin, and it was just a couple during, it was like 2006, 15 and 16, and I might have gone, I think, one other time as well. But his workshops were incredible because it helped to, especially when I was first coming off the show, off of America's Got Talent, I had a lot of questions as to who do I want to be as an artist, and what I noticed through this workshop was just how he was able to connect on a spiritual level with the music and really sing from the heart, and everything he does is improv, and so that was a unique experience for me, but it helped to open me up, to get me more comfortable being on stage, and to see that it's not about entertaining, but it's about connection. It's not really about performing, but it's just about building a bridge between us and the audience, and connecting on a very human level, an emotional level. And that was a lot that a lot of that I got from the Bobby McFerrin workshop that he puts on. And
cool. And Cordero, influences. Let me guess. Is there going to be some jazz in there? There's going to be some jazz. There's going to be like some Bach, probably.
Gosh, no.
The smile there. That was the smile of acknowledgement.
Well, no, it's so to be honest, it was early on. It was a lot of Yanni, the Greek composer Yanni, and then I guess some of like the jazzy influences kind of came from like church music, like gospel music. And there was like R&B. Like there was a time in high school where I was trying to fit in. So, and most of the kids in the school that I went to, they listened to like R&B and hip hop. So I was trying to learn special chords, saucy chords, creative saucy chords. And, so yeah, those kind of things kind of got mixed together. And also, I would, actually gospel, because in college and in law school, I was in the gospel choir as a pianist. So.
And then Hans Zimmer.
And then Hans Zimmer.
Yeah. What a fantastic influence. Yeah. Awesome stuff. Guys, I'm going to have to end it there. It's been such a pleasure to speak with you. I feel like I could speak with you for hours, and we have off of camera anyway spoken for hours. There's so much I'd like to delve into with your music, and perhaps we'll do something another time. I do want to encourage people who have been watching, as I say, have a go at that challenge. See if you can come up with a piece of music using the same instrumentation, even if it's virtual, that Sons of Serendip do. Make sure you follow the links and get hold of Micah's choir. Also, make sure you head over to Piano Book. Hopefully, we'll be seeing some more libraries from you guys at some time. Is that correct? Did I hear right, Micah, that you were hinting that you guys may be working on some other libraries at some point?
Yeah, I know we're going to be working on a number of vocal libraries, and Cordero also has some ideas too for some other instruments too. But yeah, so we'll be doing more. I'll be doing more recording, with for vocals, but then also reaching out to other vocalists too, and putting together some new instruments.
I'll also put a link in the description to Cordero's YouTube channel, where he occasionally pops some news up about things that he's doing with libraries and things like that as well. So I encourage everyone who's been watching to check out all of those links. Make sure you have a listen to the music from Sons of Serendip. Use your favorite streaming platform as well, and if you want to buy some of their albums, then definitely go ahead and do that. It's really inspirational music. It's extremely creative music. There's lots of surprises in there, in my opinion, especially for some really well-known songs. There's some really different arrangements. And if you like to be challenged a little bit in your listening, I think it's really fun stuff to do. So, guys, what I like to do on my live shows is just really throw someone in at the deep end. Usually I have my guests end the show with some words of wisdom. And I feel like we've heard a lot from Cordero. So we're going to finish with the man himself, Micah from Micah Spitfire. And I would like you to give two pieces of advices. Let's talk about grammar first, shall we? Two pieces of advice for the audience, Micah, as we leave this. The first one would be about how to get ready and prepare yourself for recording vocals. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the second would be how to be a good partner. I'm not talking about musical partner. I'm talking about, marriage type partner. There you go. There's some advice for you to give the world. Okay. So remember the first one, how to prepare for a vocal session. Second one, how to be a good husband or boyfriend or what have you. Go.
So how to prepare for a vocal session. So what I do is I will try to get a good night's sleep the night before. And then I drink a lot of water throughout the day, and then I also will, I'll do some vocal warm ups, and that brings me to that covers my full range. But then also I actually I drink olive oil as well before going into a session, and that was something that I learned from Autumn Rowe, who was a vocal coach on America's Got Talent, and she gave me some olive oil before I went out to perform because I was having some issues vocally, and I had some high notes that I needed to hit, and then I went out there and performed the song and hit the high note, and I was like, you know what? I'm taking olive oil everywhere with me, and so I drink it like every day, and that helps a lot too with just helping the sound. For me at least, it feels like it helps with it to sound smoother. So
okay, cool.
Say that.
Cool, that's awesome. And then finally, as your final words to the world, how to be a good partner.
How to be a good partner. So one thing I would say is I think listening and communication these are huge aspects to having a good partnership, and really listening for who that person is and supporting them for who they are and not who you think they should be. To see them as a human being with their own needs in process as well, and to really be committed to the journey. Because I heard a quote one time from Paulo Coelho, the writer, who talked about, he said he was asked, you've been married to the same woman for, all these years, like, doesn't it get boring? And he said, no, it's not the same woman. There have been a number of different women that I've encountered through the same person, through the years. And for me, it's like, I took from that we are in process, and to be committed to the journey, to trying to bring out the best in who they are, to support them in their gifts, and try to, and hear them where they are at each moment, each stage of our lives. So
absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. Remember, folks, here at Creative Source, it's not just about how to create libraries, but also there's life wisdom here as well. So we get that from our special guest. Thank you guys for being with us, and hopefully we will see you again sometime.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having us.